Hi everyone, in this video we're going to go over some top tips to make sure that your website is secure for customers as much as possible. So every website can undergo security breaches, and while you might not think that there's anything of value on your site, that doesn't mean there isn't an opportunity for it to be compromised. Something to note is that the majority of website security breaches are attempts to use your server as an email relay for spam, so making sure your website is secure is really important. Without a secure website, you could be hit by ransomware and have your server as part of a botnet or server files of an illegal nature. Most hacking that occurs is performed by automated scripts that scour the website and scour the internet to exploit security vulnerabilities. So we'll go over some top ways to kind of make sure that your website is as secure as possible for all of your customers and clients. So one of the most common attacks that can occur on your site is XSS attacks. So XSS attacks are cross-site scripting. Cross-site scripting is the process of whenever there's malicious code injected into your pages, namely JavaScript. Then these run into the browsers of your users and can change page content, steal information, and then send them back to hackers. One way this can be avoided is if you show comments on a page without any validation. So an attacker can see this and then submit comments that contain script tags and JavaScript tags, which can run in every user's browsers and steal their login cookies. This then allows the attacker to take control of the account of every user who has viewed the comment. To prevent this from happening, you have to ensure that users cannot inject active JavaScript content into your pages. Pages are now built primarily from user content, which generates HTML that can be interpreted by front-end frameworks like Angular and Ember. These frameworks can provide lots of XSS protection, but not always. If you mix server and client rendering, then you can create new and complicated attack avenues for hackers. What you have to focus on is user-generated content that could escape the bounds you expect and be interpreted by a browser in a way that you haven't noticed. To protect against these attacks, when dynamically generating HTML, use functions that explicitly make changes that you are looking for, or use functions in your templating tool that automatically do appropriate escaping rather than setting raw HTML content. One powerful tool to consider as well is Content Security Policy, or CSP. A CSP is a header your server can return, which alerts your browser to limit how and what JavaScript is being executed on a page. This could include things like disavowing the running of any scripts and not associating with your domain, or could allow inline JavaScript only. Another step you can take is to protect against any XSS attacks is to validate and sanitize user data. So if you're like most site owners, you enable your users to interact with your site, whether they're posting comments or submitting credit card numbers or submitting contact form information. And that's a crucial part of any websites. And these user interactions present lots of opportunities for hackers to launch these XSS attacks. That's because user input fields gives access to your site by design, but you can validate and sanitize the data to make sure nothing malicious comes your way. So if you are, if you have a WordPress website especially, there's a lot of quality themes and plugins that already do this, that already have your site's functionality to make sure the data that's being submitted by users is validated and sanitized. You can just focus on sort of choosing well-made programs instead. To make sure you're picking software that confirms user data, make sure you pay close attention to the plugin's ratings and support aspects of the plugin. So when it comes to downloading new plugins onto your site, again, there's a lot of the plugins that are available, especially the most popular ones, are sort of well built and have a lot of security features that come with them. But it's important to note that a poorly designed plugin can damage your website in terms of the security and making it unsafe for your site, and create more security risks and give hackers a backdoor access to your website. So you need to make sure that you properly vet each plugin before installation. And there's different ways to kind of do that when you're selecting a new plugin. So first thing that you want to do is, when you're looking at these plugins, you want to look at the average ratings. So it's one of the most easiest and most basic things to do when you're choosing a WordPress plugin, is to investigate the plugin by checking out the average user rating, which if you go into the plugin directory, click into the plugin that you want, you can see the ratings on the actual plugin homepage. You can see how many 5 stars it's been given, overall what their ratings are. And it's just under the descriptions tab. So users can give the plugin between 1 and 5 stars. And you want to kind of stay away from plugins that don't have at least 4 or almost 4 stars. Anything lower than that can be a potentially dangerous territory. That being said, it's also worth noting that a lot of users take binary approaches to these ratings. So by sometimes they either select the full 5 stars or just the 1 star. So that kind of skews the average a little bit. So it's important to look at the ratings, and also the number of ratings. So on average, how many 5-star and 4-star reviews are being given compared to how many 1-star reviews are being given. User reviews give star ratings some much needed context as well. So if you click into each of the ratings, you can see specifically the rating that they give, and also any more additional info to give more context. It's not uncommon for there to be a lot of varied reviews to make sense of them all. Instead of reading every single one of them, just read a handful of the most recent and highest and the lowest review ratings. This will give you an idea of the plugin before deciding whether or not to move forward with installation as well. So you can find the reviews just in the reviews tab. You can see the average rating, and you can see each of the reviews here. So some of them are a little more wordy than others, and you can also just see how old that review is. So you want to stay away from plugins that haven't been reviewed in a really long time. This plugin, for example, is as early as a day ago, and you've got reviews spanning back from weeks and months and things like that. So when you're reading for each review, watch out for common issues, as they'll reveal sort of like the weakest areas of the plugin. So for example, if lots of reviews mention that their website is significantly slower after installing it, then you might want to avoid that, because it's most likely that you will run into the same issue as well. And obviously, if there's more negative comments than positive ones, you should consider that a red flag as well. You also want to check out the plugins active installations as well. So if you go into the plugin directory and go into the plugin page again, you can see there's a tab for active installations, and the higher plugins number of active installations is, the more trusted it is by the community. Not to mention that if a plugin is installed on a large number of WordPress websites, it's likely to doing a fair job. So again, this is an easy check. You just go into the WordPress directory homepage, plugin homepage, and then just look at the number of active installations. When it comes to active installations, particularly free WordPress installations, you don't want to pick a plugin that have less than 1,000 active installations, but you should take that. But it is a sort of case by case basis. After all, a lot of new plugins will need to start somewhere, and you might find that some of the lesser used plugins are perfectly sound as well. Plugins themselves aren't regularly updated by its developer, but you'll see that in a case of a lot of poorly coded plugins. So when a plugin isn't regularly updated by its developer, it's less likely to be secure. Also, plugins ideally should be updated in line with WordPress major updates to ensure that there's compatibility. The consistency and regularity of updates is also a good way to gauge the plugin developer's level of active involvement. And again, WordPress directory make it really easy. If you go into the development tab, a lot of the plugin themselves will have a sort of like change log essentially. So it provides a list of all the previous updates, so you can see exactly what the developer has been up to since the plugin's sort of initial release. And you also want to see the section where it's asking, where it shows when the site was last updated, when the plugin was last updated. So then if you know that if it's a recent update, especially if it's a recent update in line with a WordPress update, then you know that the plugins developer is keeping up to date with the plugin, and that kind of ensures that the security, that there's less of a security risk when you're using this plugin. You also want to pay attention to the plugin compatibility. So what version of the plugin it's in, but then also what version of PHP does it use, and what version of WordPress is it compatible with, and what version has it been tested with. You want to keep in mind all of these things, because those will give you an idea on how involved the plugin developer is with WordPress technology. And obviously the more involved that is, the more up to date your site will be, and the more compatible the plugin will be with your site as well. All plugins on the WordPress support repository have a support forum located within the support tab. So if you just click into the plugin repository and then click into support, you can see a list of forums, essentially, of people creating a topic that they may be having issues with, and that other people can then click into if they're having a similar issue and sort of add in their own sort of input on if they were having the same issue, or if they're still having the same issue, what steps did they take to fix it, and things like that. If you can spot regular activity within those forums, it's a good sign that the developer is actively working to solve your user issues. If it's if there's not been a lot of discussion, if it's been years since the last since the last discussion had taken place, then try and avoid that altogether. But with that being said, developers might handle plugin support externally. That's because a lot of them aren't fans of the WordPress support system. So you might want to check out their website. If there is a website that the plugin has, you might want to check out their website for further support options. You should also see what kind of documentation comes with the plugin. So if you click into the documentation, there's a section for FAQs, and that's a pretty good place to start when you're searching for essentially a documentation as well. There'll also be a documentation file if one is available. If you can't find any regularly attended support forums, or at least some sort of documentation, proceed with caution, because if things go wrong, you're kind of on your own. In conclusion, third-party plugins are a huge part of what makes WordPress a really excellent CMS, but that doesn't mean you should trust every single plugin on the market, especially when you are thinking about site vulnerability. You want to make sure you go for a well-designed plugin that is capable of the functionality that you're looking for, but then doesn't pose any more security threat to your website. The next thing you want to look out for when you're thinking about site and how to make your website secure is to check your password. So something every internet user is familiar with is that you need to be constantly refreshing your passwords, as they're something that can be compromised quite easily. It's an integral part of all internet platforms that use strong passwords, and they're used in your server and your website admin area particularly. So enforcing password requirements is a must for users, and some best practices include having an 8-number character minimum, which includes a special number or a special character, as well as an uppercase letter. This ensures that your customer's information is protected in the long run. Another important point here is that passwords are stored as encrypted values using a one-way hashing algorithm like SHA. This means that when you're authenticating your users, you are only ever comparing encrypted values. In the worst case scenario where we have a hacker who has managed to get into your server and have access to your passwords, hashed passwords can help damage the mutation, as you can't decrypt them. The only thing a hacker can do in this situation is to use a dictionary attack, which is where they kind of guess every combination until they get a match. In modern web development, nearly all CMS provide their user management with a lot of security features built in. So enforcing password requirements is a must for users, and some best practices include having like the 8 character minimum as well. Having users with weak passwords can present a big security risk, especially those with high-level user roles like admins and editors. WordPress itself has built-in settings that will show users how strong the password is when they're creating an account, but it doesn't enforce the strength. But there's a few things that you can do to force a strong password on your WordPress users. Both of them are using some security plugins. One of them is the WordPress security plugin called iThemes. So with iThemes, there is like a premium version and there's also a free version. The premium version offers security hardening, file integrity checks, 404 detections, and more. But for the password protection features, that does come with the free version. So once you install and activate that on your site, you can essentially choose whether you want to enforce a password policy for all of these users. And that means basically that they will need to follow a strong password as well, so you can force that when users are signing up to your site. And it's something that's enforced within their password rules as well. Other things you can do is you can enable two-factor authentication, then click the toggle to the on position, and then click the next button to enable the two-factor authentication. So it's a really good way to kind of make sure that you have the strong password rule there to kind of ensure that users are using a strong password in order to set up their account. So keeping your software up to date is also a really important factor to consider whenever you are trying to make your site secure. Software updates are critical for keeping your site secure, and this doesn't only apply to software but also the server operating system that you are running your website on, be it a forum or a CMS. One benefit of using managed hosting solution is that they apply security updates regularly to your website. It should be noted though that if you are using a third-party software, it is advised to ensure that you are quick to apply any kind of security patches. A lot of CMSs like WordPress, for example, are quick to notify you whenever updates are there as soon as you log on. You should always keep your dependencies up to date, and tools like Gymnasium can give you an automatic updates or notification when a vulnerability is announced in any of your components. So for example, when you first log in to the WordPress database, you can see an update tab in the dashboard as well. Within your dashboard, you can also look at the site health status and see if there's anything within the site health screen that you need to configure. But essentially within the WordPress dashboard, you've got the updates tab here, and if you hover over it, you can see there's like an icon with a number on it. So this is essentially telling you that there are some plugins and themes that need updating. You click on that and it'll show you a whole list of all the plugins, and if there are any themes that need updating, they'll show up here as well. And it just means it's really easy to see exactly what plugins are in need of an update, and you can easily update them one by one through the plugins page or the updates page as well. It's really important that when you are doing plugin updates, that you take a backup of your site before. This wouldn't be a problem so much if you are up to date with your backup with your plugins. So if you, for example, this one here, we currently have the 3.11 version or the 3.10 version, but the new version is 3.11. There's not a big jump between between what our version is and between the newer version, and it also gives you the compatibility for that new update as well as 100%. So whenever the update isn't as big, and if there is 100% compatibility there, then you don't need to worry so much about creating a backup, because it's likely you won't run into any issues where you would need to roll back to a previous version of your site where you had an unupdated version of. However, if you have some plugins on your site that haven't been updated in a few weeks, I would suggest creating a backup yourself, whether that's through your hosting provider. So some hosting providers will allow you to make a backup at any time and store it on their servers, or allow you to download it. So either asking your hosting to take a backup of your site, or you can upload a plugin like all-in-one migration, or a plugin like Updraft to create your own backup, and you'll have the backup file essentially stored in your local computer. And it just means then if something does go wrong, so if you update one of the plugins and you realize it's clashed with another version, another plugin on your site, or it's not compatible, then it just means you have a version of your site that you can roll back to. That's a working version of your site, and try updating your plugin in a different way, or maybe start looking into alternatives for that plugin if that plugin no longer works for your site. So it's really important that you have that backup there. As I mentioned before, so plugins like Updraft are really good for it if your hosting provider doesn't allow you to make plugins on the spot, or if you don't make backups on the spot. Updraft is free, so if you go into plugins, click add new. What you want to do is search for the Updraft plugin, and you're looking for Updraft plugin here by WordPress, for WordPress by updraftplus.com, and you want to click on install now. And you want to click on activate. So you can see a new tab on the plugins page, and what you can do then is start setting up the Updraft plugin. You can use the Updraft plugin to create backups at any point. So you can see with the Updraft backups here, what we can do is just click on the backup now button, and we can decide if you want to include like the files in the backup or database and things like that. And then once you've selected what you want to actually back up, you just click on backup now, and it'll start backing up your site. What'll happen afterwards then is it'll be downloaded onto your local computer, and it just means then you have a version of the site as it has been backed up. If you go into settings, you can decide if you want a database backup schedule. So if you wanted to back up yourself daily, and how many backups kind of keep on the actual computer itself. What you can do is also choose remote storage as well. So after it's made the backup, instead of downloading to your computer, it'll actually back up to either a Dropbox account, a Google Drive account, and it'll just ask you to essentially select a folder that it can save in, and you can just sign in with Google to set that up. Some advanced features that they have are lock settings and exporting your site settings as well. But just for the case of just creating a backup for your site whenever you need it, the free version will do just fine. Once the backup is there, you can see it's really easy to kind of restore a backup. If you wanted to, just click the restore button, or you can delete them and things like that. In the free version, you can have up to 2 backups saved in the existing backups. And premium, you obviously can save a lot more. So that's just really important to think about whenever you are updating your plugins. If it's a particularly big update that has the potential to break your site, then creating a backup, whether that's on your server or using a plugin like Updraft, would be recommended. You see, if you go into the plugins dashboard instead of the updates dashboard, there's a lot more information as to what you're updating. So for example, this one here, it actually gives you a compatibility alert that some of the plugins that are currently on your site haven't been tested with the latest version of Elementor. So it's just giving you a warning that this can cause issues. And again, if you're worried about that, creating a backup will kind of help you at least avoid having your site offline for too long, basically. And you can just easily update from the backup from the WordPress dashboard here as well. Another tip to kind of make sure that your site is secure is to remove any kind of unnecessary file or unnecessary, in the case of WordPress, any unnecessary plugins and themes. So when it comes to plugins, sometimes you may download a plugin and you realize it's no longer needed. You no longer need that functionality. So instead of having it sit on the back end of your site, you are better off just removing it. If you need it afterwards, you can always re-download it, and some plugins will save the data, so you're not having to set it up from scratch, but you will need to essentially delete the plugin. Plugins, at the end of the day, even if they are as well developed and well reviewed, they're at the end of the day a security risk. So you can minimize the threat of that as much as possible by removing anything that you genuinely don't need. Especially when it comes to themes. So WordPress themes, you can only run one WordPress theme at a time. So there's really no point in having more than one theme. If you have more than one theme, you need to remove them immediately, because just like plugins, themes can also get hacked as well. So plugins, you can have a few of them if you need them, but themes, you only need one of them. So just another thing to kind of be aware of as well. Next thing then, you want to make sure that you validate not just your user input data, but also that you validate on browser and server side. So it's integral that you do validation on not your browser side, but also your server side as well. This allows your browser to catch really simple failures in mandatory fields that can be bypassed, which is why it's integral and that you check for validation and deeper validation on server side. If you don't do this, you run the risk of malicious or scripted code being inserted into your database, which can cause issues in your site and produce really bad results. You also need to watch out for any kind of error messages. So error messages aren't always as small as they might seem. So provide only minimal errors to your users so that they don't unintentionally leak issues on your server, which could be anything from database passwords to API keys. Another thing to note is not to provide full exception details, as they can make complex attacks from things like SQL injections much easier. Make sure that you keep detailed errors in your server logs and only show users the information that they actually need. And lastly, then, the one thing you want to make sure is that you're using HTTPS. So HTTPS is a protocol used to provide security over the internet, and it guarantees that users are talking to the server they expect and that no one else can intercept the content that they're seeing. If you have anything that your users might want private, for example, if you are an e-commerce website, you're obviously going to be handling user account information, their payment information, credit card, email information, things like that. It's highly advisable to use only HTTPS to deliver it. So making sure that you have that security and that the connection is secure as well. Google have also announced that they will boost you up in search rankings if you use HTTPS. So this is a SEO benefit too. Insecure HTTP is not great for your site at all, and it's time to kind of upgrade as well. And things like that. So when it comes to the security on your site, there's a lot of things, as we've seen, that you can do, especially on WordPress sites. There's lots of plugins out there that can help enhance your security to kind of protect it from malware, brute force attacks, and any kind of hacking attempts. Security plugins are designed to prevent attacks and provide a lot of complete security reports for your WordPress website. The amount of damage a security breach on your website can cause, things like hackers stealing your data, distributing malicious code to your users and other websites, and again, all of this can help destroy your SEO rankings and in general your brand reputation. So to minimize that, what you can do is use a WordPress security plugin. These plugins help you sort of harden WordPress security while also blocking brute force attacks on your website. When it comes to choosing a security plugin, you only really need to use one plugin. Having multiple security plugins can lead to a lot of bugs because a lot of the security plugins will offer similar features, and you'll get some compatibility issues. So it's always best to kind of just pick one security plugin, and there are lots out there. One of them being Securi. So Securi is the industry leader in WordPress security. It's one of the best WordPress security plugins on the market, and they offer a basic free security plugin as well to kind of help you harden that WordPress security, and they also scan your site for common threats as well. When it comes to their features, there's a lot, but the best features that kind of comes with the site is in part of their paid version. So with their paid plans, it comes with one of the best sort of WordPress firewall protection. A firewall helps you block those brute force attacks and malicious attacks from accessing WordPress. The security website firewall filters out bad traffic even before it reaches your server, and they also serve static content from their own CDN servers. Apart from security though, their DNS firewall with CDN gives you a lot of performance. It gives you a big sort of performance boost and speeds up your website as well. But most importantly, they offer to kind of clean up your WordPress site if it gets affected by malware at no additional cost. And you can even take a website already affected by malware, and they will kind of clean it up for you as well. So security is kind of a really good option, especially if you are someone that really struggles with the technical side of things, but you want to make sure that your site is as secure as possible. If you go onto their website, you can see their pricing. So again, they do have a free version of their site, of their plugin, but even their most basic one. So the ones with the CDN plan with the firewall is what you're looking at, and you can sort of see which plan, how much they cost, what comes with them. And who they're for. So things like for if you have a blog, if you're a blogger or a basic kind of budget conscious site, then this one is plenty, even just to kind of get started with your security and make sure you at least have the basic security there and ready to kind of protect your site as well. Another really popular WordPress security plugin is WordFence. So they offer a free version as well that you can download quite easily from their WordPress directory, and it comes complete with a powerful malware scanner as well, exploit detection and threat assessment features as well. The plugin will automatically scan your website for common threats, but you can also launch a full scan at any time. You'll be alerted if any signs of a security breach are detected, with the instructions to fix them. WordFence also comes with a built-in firewall, but this firewall runs on your server just before loading WordPress, so it makes it a little less effective than a DNS level firewall like Securi. To install and set up the WordFence security plugin on your website, what you want to do is download it from the WordPress directory, and then you want to just log into the back end of your website. And then once you're there, you want to go into plugins, and you want to click add new. And just click upload plugin and just upload, install and activate the plugin. Same way to how you would with any other plugin on WordPress. And then just click activate to finally activate it on your site. So once you've activated it, the plugin will add a new menu item labeled WordFence to your WordPress admin bar. You'll see here it's been added, and this page, so if you click into the WordFence tab, you'll see an overview of the you'll see an overview of the plugin security settings on your website, and you'll also see security notifications and stats like any recent IP blocking, failed attempts, total attacks blocked, things like that. WordFence settings are divided into different sections. So you have the firewall, scan, and tools. So if we, for example, go into scan, this will essentially scan your site for any WordPress installations as well. So first thing that you want to do is actually make sure you have a license set up. So if you go back into your dashboard, you will get a prompt to kind of add your WordFence license. If you click into that, you just need to click in for a new license as well. Once you have the license key emailed out to you, you just add that in, and then you'll have the WordPress dashboard essentially filled out. So you can see the firewall, you can see the scan and things like that. So for example, if you would go into the scan tab and then click on start a new scan, WordPress will now start scanning your WordPress files, and the scan will look for changes in file size in the official WordPress core and plugin. It will also look inside the files to check for any suspicious code, backdoors, malicious URLs, and any known patterns of infections. So typically these scans need a lot of server resources to run, and WordPress does a really good job of running the scans as efficiently as possible. The time it takes to complete a scan will depend on how much data you have and the actual server resources available. But you'll be able to see the progress of the scan in the yellow box, or in this box here, where it shows you exactly what they're checking, and how long it's going to take for the check to fix. The free WordPress plugin automatically runs full scans on your WordPress site once every 24 hours. And the premium version of the plugin allows you to set up your own scan schedules. So you can sort of see, so depending on how involved you want to be in the approach, sometimes the once every 24 hours is enough, and sometimes you want to be tested a little bit more. So depending on your needs, the free version might work better, or the premium version might work better for you as well. And then you can also set up the firewall. So WordPress comes with a website firewall, and it offers 2 levels of protection. So the basic level, which is enabled by default, allows the WordPress firewall to run as essentially like a plugin, and that means the firewall will load with the rest of your WordPress plugins. And this can protect you from several threats, but it will miss out on threats that are designed to trigger before WordPress themes are loaded. And the second level of protection is called extended protection. So this will allow WordPress to run before WordPress core themes and plugins, and it's a much better option against for protection against more advanced security threats. So you see the firewall here, and then you've got the blocking here as well. But again, that the blocking, you would need to upgrade to premium if you want to enable country by country blocking and things like that. If you go onto their tools page, and here you can see things like your live traffic. So you can see a summary view of all of the security related traffic. And you can see sort of things like traffic, sort of IP address, host names, and things like that. And that way you can sort of block individual IPs or even full networks on this page as well. You can sort of block suspicious IPs that are manually yourself, if you feel like you needed to, but you have those options there as well. So compared to like something like Securi, both WordFence and Securi are great choices to improve your WordPress security, but Securi has some features that give a slight edge over WordPress, and that main one would be the website firewall. So the WordPress firewall is application level, which means it is initiated on your server, but Securi website firewall is DNS level. So all your traffic to your website goes to their cloud proxy first before reaching your website. That's a lot more effective in blocking sort of DDoS attacks, and they're more efficient that way as well. It also reduces a lot of the server load on your website. But both are kind of good plugins to kind of start off with if you needed to. The other one then we mentioned briefly earlier, so iTheme Security. So iTheme Security is another website plugin, security plugin, and they offer a really nice clean user interface with a lot of options. Again, it comes with file integrity checks, security hardening, limiting login attempts, strong password, 404 detections, brute force protections, and things like that. iTheme Security doesn't include a website firewall, but it does include its own malware scanner, and it uses Security's own SiteCheck malware scanner as well. Another powerful WordPress security plugin is the all-in-one WordPress security and firewall plugin. It comes with sort of security auditing, monitoring, and it is also a firewall plugin as well. So it allows you to apply really basic WordPress security best practices on your website. It comes with features like login lockdown to prevent brute force attacks, IP filtering, file integrity monitoring, and user account monitoring. It also scans for suspicious patterns of database injections and a whole lot more. It comes with a basic website level firewall that can detect common patterns and block them for you, but it's not very efficient, and you'll often be required to manually blacklist suspicious IPs. But for a free plugin, it definitely does offer a lot of protection anyway, and does beef up the security for your WordPress site. Definitely, if you're on a budget, it's one to consider. If you're not quite ready yet to pay for a WordPress security plugin. The next one is the anti-malware security plugin that you can find on the WordPress directory. Again, it's free. It's really excellent and useful, and it comes with actively maintained definitions that kind of help find its most common threats. Its malware scanner allows you to scan files really easily and folders on your WordPress site for malicious code. Any kind of backdoors, malware, and other known patterns of malicious attacks. The plugin requires you to create a free account on the plugin's website to access the latest definitions and get some premium features like brute force protection. And while the plugin runs through tests, it does show a lot of false positives is the only thing. So matching each one with the source file is a little bit of work. It is another good one, but there are sort of the previous ones I've mentioned that I would rank slightly higher in terms of ease of use. Lastly, then you have WP Security. So WP Scan Security is a unique WordPress plugin because it uses its own manually curated WordPress vulnerability database, and is updated daily by a dedicated team of WordPress security specialists and community members. They scan your site for over 21,000 security vulnerabilities within WordPress plugins, themes, and the core software. You can schedule automated daily scans and get email notifications of the results. And they have a free security API suitable for most websites, but you can upgrade to their paid plan if you have a larger site and use a lot of plugins. So overall, there are a multitude of methods to ensure that your website is safe and secure. This is integral to guarantee that your customers can browse your website without exposing them to anything unsavory that could damage your site and their experience. If you need any additional security on your website and you're unsure of how to implement it, at Profile Tree here, we have a myriad of web development experts that are waiting to help you with your website. So contact us today at any time to start sort of optimizing your site and making sure it's as secure as possible for all your users and all your customers.